Hi, good morning, everyone. Sorry for not being there again, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. So, basically, today we will be talking about the Japanese economy. I will be giving you a brief, quick overview about the country profile. Japan is the third largest economy in the world in terms of nominal GDP, which is highly exposed to external shocks as they depend on exports. The economy experienced some rough times since 2008, which is known as the beginning of a recession, as they also went through a slowdown in the global economy. It's on a moderate recovery, while weakness can be seen in some areas of Japan. Um, Japan's population has fallen by nearly 1 million in the past 5 years. Therefore, they call it the shrinking aging population. Post war, Japan managed to expand through focusing on car and consumer electronic industries. And it is the force behind Japan's economy. You can say that it is manufacturing industry, as they are known for being ahead in technological industries. And Japan, you can say it's a noticeable, important role in the international community as it is a major aid donor and a source of global capital and credit. As for the Japanese Prime Minister, which is Shinzo Abe, he rose to power on the promise of Abenomics, which is an economic reform package designed to pull the Japanese economy out of a 2 decade slump characterized by low inflation and sluggish growth. Moving on to the second slide, which is talking about the economic history of Japan. And it can be said that the Japanese economy lost a decade between 1990 and 2002. As a matter of fact, its annual growth did not surpass 1.2%, which translates a stagnating economy facing a very low economic growth in contrast to other Asian countries. As for their public debt, which increased from 60% of the GDP in 1991 to 145% 9 years later. Also, the Japanese households are more incentivized to save than consume, and this it is actually negatively affecting its economy. In fact, their purchasing power has been decreasing and decreasing due to a decrease in household income. And with the reduction of retirement funds, consumption significantly decreased as unemployment increased from 4.8% in 2000 to 5.5% in 2002. As the government budget which is not sustainable, it cannot compensate for its households insufficient consumption, which also leads to a very low annual growth. And the fact that you invest more than it requires or more than it's needed, the Japanese firms found themselves facing a surplus of investment, and compared to other Asian competitive firms who managed to have low production cost and prices as well, whereas the Japanese economy were facing very expensive costs, and therefore the productivity growth was not sufficient in order to back up high wages expenses for firms, and the financial system of the government was also not sustainable enough to back up this circumstance. Moving on to the third slide, which will be talking about monetary and fiscal policies. And it's important to state why the Japanese people do not respond to the stimulus, which is because of an aging population, as I mentioned before. They have a low propensity to consume, and that's why interest rates channel are falling. Therefore, they're facing a liquidity trap right now, and both policies are facing operational lag. Consumers have not yet responded, or they're still not responding to the stimulus packaging and to the stimulus packages. Focusing on the monetary policy, which is not working, the Japanese economy is undergoing an aggressive monetary policy using open market operations and quantitative easing as their main tools. And in fact, which is basically it's buying public and private debt. And in 2016, they were oddly targeting negative interest rates, and this did not work out for them, since the market is not responding to the stimulus, as I mentioned before. And the Japanese government does not believe in central banks, in the central bank's method of aggressively buying debt, since it has shown no effects, zero effects, and the central banks counterparties are now becoming unwilling to sell the private debt. In spite of this, the central bank is planning to continue with their aggressive quantitative easing this upcoming year. Moving on to the fiscal policy, which is not working because of Japan's structure. I already told you that it's an aging population, and that's why they have high propensity to save. Japan is, not to mention that Japan is also the country with the highest debt. I also mentioned this before, and it has the highest debt to GDP ratio, which is above 200%. Therefore, any expansionary fiscal policy has to be taken, it should consider carefully, because they can end up simply accumulating debt instead of stimulating the economy. And Japan is planning to continue introducing those fiscal packages because the Japanese government has little faith in the central bank and believe that the only way to stimulate the economy is through financial packages. There's some data from 2015 that says Japan is the fourth largest exporter and the fifth largest importer in the world. This active place in the world economy makes its foreign policy extremely important, both on a global, international view and on a national level. Japan is ranked second after the United States on the IMF ranking, which makes it gives a lot of influence on the global economic environment. In fact, their imports of Japan in 2016 are 1.7 something trillion euros. It decreased from 2015 by 1.3%. Their imports are basically in the Asian countries 60.4%, Europe 16%, and the main types of imports of goods imported to Japan are basically mineral fuels, including oil, which accounts for 18.2% of total imports, electrical machinery, 14.8%. Sorry, by the way, the mineral fuels that includes oil, they account for 18.2%, and the machinery and the electrical machinery accounts for 14.8%. I think I mixed the numbers. They also import pharmaceutical, which accounts for 4%. As for their exports in 2016, they have 1.74 something trillion. It's more than the imports. Trillion euros. It decreased from 2015 of the percentage of growth, representing a 2.4% lower than 2015. Their exports in Asian countries are 57.3%. It's a regional market that's facilitated by the geographical proximity. South Africa 23.1% and Europe 13%. The exports sectors are vehicles, 22% of total exports. They have what else? They have computers that account for 19.2%, electrical machinery 15.2%, iron and steel, which account for 3.8%. Therefore, the trade balance of Japan has been improving in the past decade, indeed, from 2006 to 2002. The trade balance was negative, which means that they have imports more than exports. And however, during those 6 years, the trade deficit was reducing slowly. So the trend of reducing the Japanese trade deficit got confirmed in 2013, and which is when the trade balance became a trade surplus representing 48.931 million euros. In fact, the trade surplus continued increasing within the next years at an unstable rate, leading the country to have a positive trade balance of 313 million in 2016. This trend of trade surplus seems to indicate a better economic situation for Japan that could be explained through the decrease in energy prices. Japan has been opening its economy to the world, which it's engaged in 15 different regional trade agreements. One, Japan seems to be more committed to open their border. That's why they entered the World Trade Organization in 1995. Japan also joined the Asia Pacific Economic Corporation in 1989, and the Asian Pacific Economic Corporation has for goal to create an Asia Pacific community in which free and open market would be favorable to economic growth and favorize the regional economic integration. Trans-Pacific, they also have Trans-Pacific Agreement, which was signed in February 2016 under the influence of the American President Obama. This agreement would have been the perfect opportunity for Japan to expand their business in new territories such as the US, for example. However, since the new American president is Trump, and which refused to ratify the treaty, therefore, the future of this partnership seems to be compromised. And according to future political development, this opportunity could be a way for Japan to promote economic growth through stronger partnership abroad. I will leave you with my classmate. Thank you.